The grocery store was quiet in the way it usually was late in the evening. Not peaceful, just tired. The lights were bright, but the people inside looked worn down, moving slowly through the aisles with carts that squeaked and rattled. Outside, the sky was already dark. A cold wind pushed against the glass doors every time they opened near the checkout line. A woman stood holding a small basket instead of a cart. She kept shifting her weight from one foot to the other, as if standing still was uncomfortable. Her coat was thin and old, the kind that had seen too many winters. One sleeve was slightly frayed near the wrist. Her hair was pulled back in a loose tie, strands falling around her face no matter how many times she pushed them away. Inside the basket were only a few items: a loaf of bread, a carton of milk, a small pack of eggs, some rice, a cheap box of cereal with a smiling cartoon on the front. Nothing extra. Nothing that could be called a treat. Just enough to get through a couple of days. Behind her, a young child sat in the cart seat she had borrowed from the store entrance. The child's legs dangled, shoes scuffed and worn. Big eyes watched everything around them, moving from the candy rack to the cashier to the bright screen that showed prices. The child didn't ask for anything, didn't reach out, just waited. The cashier scanned the items one by one. The beeping sound felt louder than it should have. Each beep made the woman's shoulders tighten a little more. When the last item was scanned, the cashier read the total out loud. It wasn't much, but it might as well have been a mountain. The woman reached into her pocket and pulled out a worn wallet. She opened it slowly, as if hoping something new might appear inside. She counted a few bills, then stopped. Her fingers trembled as she took out a card. She handed it to the cashier with a small, forced smile. The cashier swiped the card. The machine made a sound, then another. A pause. The cashier looked at the screen and tried again. The same result? "I'm sorry," the cashier said quietly. "It didn't go through." The woman swallowed hard. "Can you try one more time?" she asked. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic, like she was asking for a favor she didn't deserve. The cashier nodded and swiped again. The machine beeped and flashed. Still nothing. "I'm really sorry," the cashier said. "It's declining." The woman's face flushed. She nodded quickly, avoiding eye contact. "Okay," she said. "That's okay. I'll put some things back." She turned toward the basket and started pulling items out one by one. First, the cereal, then the eggs. Her hands moved fast, like she wanted it to be over before anyone noticed. The child watched silently, eyes fixed on the basket. The line behind her grew still. No one spoke. No one complained. But the silence itself felt heavy. At the end of the line stood a man who had been watching the whole thing without meaning to. He hadn't come to the store for anything important. Just a few items after a long day. He was dressed simply. Nothing flashy. Clean jacket. Plain shoes. The kind of man you wouldn't notice twice. He saw the way the woman's shoulders slumped, the way she kept nodding as if agreeing with a judgment no one had spoken out loud. He saw how the child didn't cry or complain, just sat there. Already used to moments like this, before the woman could hand more items to the cashier. The man stepped forward, put it all back, he said. The cashier looked up, confused. "I'm sorry." "All of it," the man said calmly. "She's taking everything." The woman turned around, startled. "No, you don't have to," she started. The man shook his head gently. "It's fine," he said. "Really?" He took his credit card out of his wallet and placed it on the counter. "Just ring it up." The woman stared at the card like it wasn't real. "I can't accept that," she said quickly. "You don't know me." "That's true," the man said. "But I know what it looks like when someone needs help." The cashier hesitated, then looked between them. "Are you sure?" "Yes," the man said. The cashier rang everything back in. The beeping started again, this time sounding different somehow. The total came up. The cashier swiped the card. Approved, the woman covered her mouth with her hand. Her eyes filled instantly. "I'll pay you back," she said. "I swear. I just need your name. Or your number. Something." The man shook his head again. You don't owe me anything. Take care of your kid, he said. That's enough. The cashier handed the bags over. The woman took them slowly, like they might disappear if she moved too fast. She looked up again, ready to say more, but the man was already stepping back, grabbing his own small bag. Thank you, she said anyway, her voice breaking. You have no idea what this means, gave a small smile. I think I do. Then he walked out, the door closing softly behind him. The woman stood there for a moment, frozen. The cashier gave her a kind look. Have a good night, the cashier said. She nodded and pushed the cart outside. The cold air hit her face, but she didn't feel it. Her hands were shaking as she loaded the bags into the cart. The child looked up at her. Are we okay? The child asked. She knelt down and hugged the child tightly. Yes, she said, tears falling freely now. We're okay. The walk home felt shorter than usual. Every step felt lighter, even though the bags were heavier. When they reached their small apartment, Mishi set the groceries on the counter and just stood there, staring at them. She made a simple meal that night. Nothing special. But the child ate slowly, smiling between bites. She watched, her chest aching in a way that hurt and healed at the same time. Later, after the child fell asleep, she sat alone at the small kitchen table. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that usually felt lonely. Tonight, it felt different. She thought about the man's face. Kind, no questions. No conditions. She pressed her fingers together, taking a deep breath. Her eyes drifted to her phone on the table. She hadn't used one contact in a long time. She told herself she was done with that life. That part of her past was closed. But kindness has a way of reopening doors. She picked up the phone. For the first time in years. She dialed a number she thought she'd never call again, somewhere else in the city. The man who paid for the groceries was at home, unaware that his small choice had already started something much bigger than him, and the night moved on. Quiet on the surface, but no longer ordinary. The next morning, the woman woke up to the soft sounds of the city outside her small apartment window. Birds chirped somewhere, a car honked in the distance, and the wind rattled the thin curtains. The apartment was quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. She stretched and rubbed her eyes, still feeling the weight of the previous night's events. She glanced at the kitchen table. The groceries from the kind stranger were neatly stacked. Even after only a few hours of sleep, she felt a strange sense of relief. The simple act of being helped had lifted a heaviness she hadn't realized she was carrying. Her child was still asleep in the small bed across the room, and she watched the chest rise and fall, feeling grateful for the simple safety of the moment. The day ahead was long. She had errands to run, bills to pay, and her job required her to start early. Yet somehow, she felt lighter. She made a quick breakfast for her child. Simple scrambled eggs and toast, and they sat together quietly. The child chatting softly about dreams from the night before. After breakfast, she packed a small bag with essentials and stepped outside. The air was chilly, but the sunlight made it feel softer than the usual morning cold. On the walk to the bus stop, she thought about the man who had helped her. She had no idea who he was. His face lingered in her mind, calm and steady. He had spoken so little but given so much. She realized it had been a long time since someone had shown kindness without expecting anything in return. She had been through so many hardships, losing family, struggling to make ends meet, and facing people who turned away when life got tough. And yet here was someone, a stranger, who had done something simple, yet powerful. As she waited for the bus, her phone buzzed. She nearly dropped it, startled by the sound. She looked at the screen and froze. It was a message from someone she had not spoken to in years, someone she had thought she would never reach out to again. Her fingers hovered over the screen for a long moment. Her heart raced. The kindness from a stranger had given her the courage to take a step she had avoided for so long. She typed a quick message, unsure if she would even hit send, then paused. Her thoughts raced back to her child, to the last few years, to all the small moments of struggle. She pressed send anyway. The bus arrived and she climbed aboard, holding the bag close. The seats were worn, and the smell of morning coffee lingered in the air. She sat by the window and stared at the city as it moved past. People hurried along the sidewalks, faces buried in phones or lost in thought. It all felt both familiar and distant, like watching a movie about a life she had once led. She thought about the man again. She wondered if he knew what he had done. He probably didn't. He had likely moved on, not thinking twice about that brief moment in the grocery store. But for her, it had made all the difference. At work, the day passed slowly. She moved through her tasks mechanically, but her mind kept returning to that small act of generosity. It gave her hope in a way she had not felt in years. The world had felt harsh, unkind, and unyielding. But now, she remembered that there were still people who cared, who could make a difference without asking for anything in return. During her lunch break, she stepped outside for a moment. The sun was higher now, warming the pavement. She leaned against a railing, thinking about her child's future, about stability, and about what she could do to make life a little easier for them both. She felt determined, inspired by the reminder that small acts could ripple into larger ones. After work, she returned home, the day having taken its toll. Her child greeted her with a smile, showing a piece of homework completed. She hugged the child tightly, feeling a mixture of pride and relief. Dinner was simple, but they ate together, laughing softly at small jokes and stories from the day. As night fell, she settled into the living room with her child asleep. She thought about calling a friend, reaching out to someone who could help. She realized the act of kindness had opened her mind to the possibilities of connection, trust, and support. She felt less alone than she had in years. She also thought about the stranger, wondering if he had a family, a life filled with challenges of his own, or if he simply moved through the world noticing those who needed help. She imagined him in his apartment, unaware of the impact he had already made. She smiled quietly, realizing that some of the most meaningful moments in life were the ones we didn't anticipate. The night stretched on, and she finally drifted into sleep, feeling a sense of hope she had not known for a long time. The world felt slightly softer, less frightening. She held on to the thought that kindness existed, that it could arrive when you least expected it, and that even strangers could shape your life in ways you never imagined. Tomorrow would bring challenges, as it always did. But for now, she felt a peace that had been missing for years. The small act of help from a man she had never known had given her courage, hope, and a renewed belief that the world still held goodness. It had opened a door, and she was ready to step through, one careful, determined step at a time. Somewhere else in the city, the man went about his day, unaware that a single act of generosity had already started to change someone's life, setting in motion a chain of events that neither of them could yet predict. The morning sun cut through the blinds of the man's apartment, sending stripes of light across the floor. He stirred from his sleep slowly, stretching his arms above his head, rubbing his eyes. The city outside buzzed with its usual early energy honking cars, hurried footsteps, and the faint hum of a distant train. He got out of bed, showered, and dressed in the same calm, methodical way he always did, unaware that his life had already begun to touch someone else in a way he could never have imagined. After grabbing a simple breakfast of toast and coffee, he left his apartment, locking the door behind him. The streets were busy with people heading to work, to school, or running errands. He moved through the crowd with ease, walking with a natural rhythm that made him blend in with everyone else. He didn't notice the subtle changes in the world, the ripple effects that would start to follow him through the day. Meanwhile, across the city, the woman was navigating a different kind of morning. She was exhausted, but motivated. The groceries from yesterday were helping her feel organized, giving her a small sense of security she hadn't felt in a long time. Her child ate breakfast quietly. She found herself smiling at the little things. A laugh here, a small accomplishment there. It was a world rebuilt from the smallest act of kindness. The woman decided to tackle some pressing errands first. Bills had to be paid, and a few necessities had to be picked up. She took a bus, then walked through crowded streets, carrying the weight of her child in her mind as she juggled bags and schedules. People passed by without noticing her struggle, and yet the kindness she had received lingered, giving her courage to keep moving forward. The man, meanwhile, was unaware of how his actions the night before had shifted a person's life. He had spent a long day at work, finishing tasks, sending emails, and helping colleagues with small problems. He didn't think twice about the grocery store incident, as he had done what he felt was right and moved on. Yet unseen threads of connection had already begun to weave themselves between him and the woman. By late afternoon, the woman was feeling the stress of the day mounting. Some problems at home had piled up, small emergencies that always seemed to appear when life was least forgiving. She checked her phone, hoping for a reply from the message she had sent the previous night. The anticipation twisted her stomach, a mix of hope and fear. Then, finally, a response came. A simple acknowledgement, short but meaningful. A sign that the bridge to the past she had feared crossing was still standing. She let out a long breath. She didn't realize she had been holding. A weight had lifted, and in that moment she felt more in control of her life than she had in years. She began to make plans, thinking of small steps she could take to improve things for herself and her child. Each step felt possible now, not because the world had changed, but because someone had shown her that kindness existed, and that courage could be contagious. Back at the man's apartment, he returned home exhausted but satisfied with the day. He made a light dinner, read a few pages of a book, and reflected on nothing in particular. The ordinary rhythms of his life went on, completely unaware of the growing momentum outside his door. But life, as it often does, had a way of moving faster than anyone realized. The evening brought an unexpected noise, a distant rumble that grew louder and closer. The sound of engines filled the streets, and he stepped to the window to look outside. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then, slowly, a line of motorcycles appeared, one after another, rolling through the street with a precision and intensity that drew the attention of everyone nearby. Pedestrians stopped, watching in amazement, some moving to the edges of the sidewalks. The man frowned. His mind raced, wondering what had prompted this sudden gathering. He had no enemies, no reason for this unusual display. The motorcycles roared past, the riders wearing leather jackets and helmets, their faces hidden, but their presence commanding. A chill ran down his spine, not of fear, exactly, but of anticipation. He stepped outside, curiosity overtaking caution. The bikers had parked in a semicircle near the entrance of his building. Their engines idled, sending vibrations through the pavement. One of them dismounted and removed their helmet, revealing a face he did not recognize, but one that carried authority. They asked for him by name, their tone calm but firm. The man took a cautious step forward. "Yes, that's me. Can I help you?" he asked, trying to mask his uncertainty. The biker nodded toward the building behind him. "You helped someone. Someone who matters to us." Confusion clouded his expression. He had helped many people in his life, quietly, without fanfare. But he could not imagine how that act had drawn such attention. "I don't understand," he said. "I don't know what you mean." Just then, the woman appeared from behind the group. She had returned, not alone, but with a force he could not have anticipated. The bikers stood behind her like silent guardians. She explained calmly, her voice steady, but carrying an edge of relief and gratitude. "He helped me yesterday," she said, "and I told them how he didn't ask for anything. He just did what was right. They came to show their thanks in the way they know." The man blinked, speechless. He had expected perhaps a simple thank you, but not this organized, overwhelming display. The bikers nodded in acknowledgement, their expressions serious, yet respectful. The woman smiled, a mixture of relief and pride. "You don't know what your kindness meant," she said. "Not just for me, but for us. You've changed more than just a day. You've given hope." The man struggled to find words. This was more than he had anticipated. He had acted out of instinct, out of a belief in doing what was right, never imagining it would ripple into such an extraordinary consequence. And yet, standing here, seeing the gratitude and the silent support behind her, he felt a warmth that had nothing to do with recognition and everything to do with the impact of small, quiet acts. The bikers remained respectful, their presence a silent promise of protection, loyalty, and acknowledgement. They had come not for confrontation, not for demands, but simply to express that a life had been touched. And that gesture would not be forgotten. The woman and the man stood together in the growing twilight, the hum of the engines fading slightly, the city still moving around them. And in that moment, a simple act of generosity. A quiet choice made the night before had grown into something neither could have expected. It was a testament to the power of kindness, to the ways in which one person's small decision can reverberate far beyond their understanding, shaping lives and opening doors that had long been closed. The man finally exhaled, a small smile breaking through his confusion. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "Now you do," she replied, her voice soft but firm. "And it matters." The sun set, casting an orange glow across the buildings. Engines were still rumbling faintly in the distance, a reminder that life moves in unexpected ways and that one act, no matter how small, can create ripples that reach farther than anyone can see. And somewhere in that moment, both of them understood that the world had shifted, quietly but unmistakably. Because of a choice made in kindness, the street was filled with the low rumble of engines, and the man could still hear the echo bouncing off the buildings as he stood outside his apartment. The woman stepped closer, her presence calm but strong, and the bikers behind her remained silent, forming a protective line that made the man instinctively take a small step back. He was trying to understand what was happening, why such a dramatic show had been organized, and what it all meant. "Please, don't be afraid," the woman said gently. "They're not here to harm you. They're here to thank you." The man nodded slowly, his voice hesitant. "Thank me? I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just paid for groceries. That's all." She shook her head, a small smile forming on her lips. "It's more than that. You reminded me that kindness exists. You reminded me that there are people in the world who can do the right thing without thinking about themselves. That's extraordinary." He looked around at the bikers, who were quiet, their faces serious under the glow of the streetlights. They were imposing, no question, but their eyes showed respect, not anger. They didn't move forward aggressively. They simply stood there, waiting, giving a sense of weight to the moment. The leader of the group, a tall man with a calm demeanor, spoke. "We know who you are. We know what you did, and we're here to make sure that your action is acknowledged. It matters to the people you helped, and that matters to us." The man's brow furrowed. He had never imagined that his quiet choice could have such an impact. He tried to speak, but found the words caught somewhere between disbelief and awe. The woman stepped forward. "You might not understand now, but what you did changed things. It gave me hope. It gave my child hope. And that's why they're here. To show gratitude in the way they know best. They're my family in a way. People who have stood by me when no one else would. And today, they're standing by you." The man looked at her, a mix of emotion and confusion in his eyes. He had acted out of instinct, out of a sense of duty to do good, but he had never expected a response this powerful. He felt a warmth in his chest, a feeling of connection that he rarely experienced. The world often seemed cold and indifferent. Yet here was a reminder that small choices could ripple into something bigger than anyone could predict. The bikers remained silent, but the energy in the air shifted. It was not threatening. It was affirming. They were giving him the sense that his actions had weight, that they had mattered. The woman smiled again, a mixture of gratitude and relief, as she realized that the man now understood the significance of what he had done. "Why are you doing this?" he finally asked, his voice low. "I mean, you don't even know me. I didn't do anything heroic." The woman shook her head. "You don't have to be a hero. You just have to care. That's all it takes." That small act meant the world to me. And when someone changes your world, you want them to know they mattered. The leader of the bikers nodded. "Exactly. We live in a world where people often forget what matters. Loyalty, kindness, support, they're easy to overlook. But we notice them. And when someone does the right thing, we honor it." The man took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He had spent his life helping quietly, without recognition, without fanfare. He had never sought to influence anyone's life in a grand way. And yet, standing here, he realized that even the smallest gesture could echo far beyond his understanding. The woman reached out and placed a hand gently on his arm. "You didn't just help me buy groceries. You reminded me that people can be good. You reminded me that the world isn't as harsh as it seems. And for that, I am grateful." "We all are." He looked at her, seeing sincerity in her eyes, a reflection of the lives he had touched unknowingly. It was humbling, and for the first time in a long while, he felt seen not for what he could do for himself, but for the way he could impact others. The bikers began to move slightly, forming a protective circle around him, but not in a threatening way. It was a gesture of inclusion, a silent acknowledgement that he was now part of something larger than himself. A community formed not by blood or obligation, but by respect and gratitude. The man exhaled slowly, letting the tension leave his body. The city sounds around them, the hum of distant traffic, the occasional shout. The rhythm of life moving on seemed softer, less jarring. He felt grounded, connected in a way that was rare in his everyday life. The woman smiled one last time, feeling a sense of closure and fulfillment. "Thank you," she whispered. "Truly." He nodded, a small smile forming. "I'm glad it helped," he said quietly, as the bikers mounted their motorcycles. The engines revving gently, the man watched them with a mix of awe and humility. He had acted with no expectation of recognition, and yet here was a world responding to that act in a way he could never have imagined. The woman waved as they left, her presence a comforting reminder of the connection that had formed. After they departed, the man stood on the sidewalk for a moment, taking in the cool evening air. The city around him seemed different now, more alive, more connected. He realized that acts of kindness, no matter how small, carried power far beyond their initial gesture. And in that realization, he felt a deep sense of purpose and hope. He walked back to his apartment, the lights of the city reflecting in his eyes. He knew that life would go on, that challenges would continue. But now he had proof that even the quietest actions could spark change, could build connections, and could touch lives in ways he might never fully understand. That night, as he prepared for bed, he thought of the woman and her child, of the bikers, and of the ripple he had unknowingly started. A small smile lingered on his face as he drifted into sleep, carrying with him the quiet assurance that good deeds, even the simplest ones, mattered more than he had ever realized. The following morning, the man woke up with a sense of calm he hadn't felt before. The city was quiet outside his window, the sun beginning to filter through the blinds. He made a simple breakfast, reflecting on the events of the previous evening. The encounter with the bikers and the woman had left a lasting impression. For the first time, he understood that small acts could have profound effects, and that sometimes the impact of a gesture was far larger than the intention behind it. He dressed and left his apartment, walking through the streets with a newfound awareness. Everything seemed sharper, more vibrant. The people around him moved quickly, each absorbed in their own lives, but he noticed them now in a way he hadn't before. A man holding a child's hand, a woman struggling with heavy grocery bags, a delivery worker balancing boxes. They were all part of the same world he had touched in a small, quiet way. Meanwhile, the woman was preparing for the day with a different kind of energy. The groceries had made a difference, but the emotional lift from the stranger's kindness and the bikers' acknowledgement had given her hope that extended beyond basic needs. She made breakfast for her child, packed lunches, and reviewed bills and schedules. Life was still challenging. The sense of possibility was stronger than it had been in years. She stepped outside to run a few errands, carrying her child's hand and a tote of essentials. The city seemed less intimidating. People passed by, some giving small smiles, some absorbed in their own routines. The experience of kindness she had received felt like a shield, reminding her that there were still people who acted with care, who noticed and supported others quietly. Throughout the day, she reflected on the impact the man had made. It wasn't the money. It wasn't even the groceries. It was the message behind the action. Someone had seen her struggle and chosen to act without judgment or expectation. That small choice shifted the way she viewed herself and her ability to face challenges. The ripple effect extended beyond her immediate life. She felt empowered, capable, and connected. The man, meanwhile, moved through his own day with a quiet smile. He helped colleagues with tasks, held doors for strangers, and offered a word of encouragement to a neighbor who seemed weary. These were small acts, almost habitual, but now they carried more weight. He felt that every interaction, every moment, could be meaningful. Even a brief smile could ripple out, impacting someone's day in ways he might never know. Later, returned to his apartment to find a note slipped under his door. It was from the woman. She had written simply, "Thank you. For more than just groceries, you reminded me that people care. You made a difference." There were no grand declarations, no expectations. Only gratitude that warmed him in a way nothing else had recently. He read it again and again, thinking about the chain of events it represented. The small choice to help at the grocery store, the woman's courage to reach out, the biker's response siege step built upon the last, creating a network of care and connection. He realized that kindness was not just an isolated action. It was a force that, when multiplied, could change lives in ways that were impossible to calculate. The woman returned home that evening with her child. Dinner was simple, but the conversation was rich. The child laughed freely, unaware of the magnitude of what had occurred, but feeling the warmth and safety that had grown from these small gestures. She reflected on the strength and courage that had emerged within her. She felt gratitude for the opportunities ahead, no matter how small or ordinary they might seem. At the same time, the man prepared for bed, thinking quietly about the day's events. He had helped many people before, but this felt different. This was not about recognition or repayment. It was about connection, about understanding that the choices we make, even the quiet ones, can touch lives deeply. He felt the weight of responsibility, but in a gentle, affirming way. He wanted to continue acting with care, knowing that even the smallest gesture could create ripples far beyond his awareness. As the night grew quiet, both the man and the woman reflected on the invisible threads connecting their lives. They had shared a single moment, a brief intersection of circumstance, and it had multiplied into a lasting impact. Hope, gratitude, courage, and recognition had all flowed from that moment. It was a reminder that the human experience was profoundly interconnected, that even small acts could leave a legacy of kindness. The following days were filled with routine, work, and ordinary life, yet the memory of that night remained. The woman found herself more confident, more willing to face challenges, and more open to connecting with others. The man continued his quiet acts of kindness, each with a renewed sense of purpose. Though they moved through the world separately, the impact of that single act remained a quiet testament to the power of human decency. And so, life continued, ordinary and extraordinary all at once. The world moved around them, often unaware of the significance of small choices. But the man and the woman, along with the silent support of the bikers, had discovered something essential, that even the simplest actions, when guided by compassion, could change lives in ways far greater than anyone could anticipate. That night, and the days that followed, stood as a quiet proof that kindness, genuine and unselfish, carried a power that could ripple through the world, touching hearts and leaving lasting impact where it was least expected but most needed. Weeks had passed since the incident at the grocery store, but the memory remained vivid for both the woman and the man. Life had returned to its usual rhythm, but something fundamental had shifted. The woman felt stronger, more confident in her ability to face each day, and the man carried with him a quiet satisfaction that no act of kindness was ever wasted. The woman woke early one morning, sunlight streaming through the thin curtains. She had a list of errands, appointments, and work responsibilities. But the weight that usually accompanied her day-to-day life felt lighter. The groceries she had received weeks ago had long been consumed, yet the impact of that night lingered far beyond the food. It had opened doors of hope and courage she hadn't realized were closed. Her child sat at the table, finishing breakfast, chatting about a story from school. She smiled, listening, feeling the warmth of a life that had been nurtured and protected by more than just her own efforts. She thought about the stranger who had stepped in at the grocery store. the man who had handed over his credit card without hesitation. His face appeared in her mind, calm and composed, and she realized that sometimes the smallest gestures could create the largest waves, determined to make the most of her day. She stepped outside, the fresh morning air invigorating. She walked briskly, her child holding her hand, heading toward the bus stop. The streets were filled with people moving with purpose, each caught in the momentum of life. She noticed small details, the laughter of children, the warmth of the sun on a passerby's face, a stranger's courteous nod, and it reminded her that kindness existed everywhere if one took the time to see it. Meanwhile, the man began his day in his usual way. He prepared a simple breakfast, read a few pages from a book, and then left his apartment. Walking through the city, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The encounter with the bikers and the woman had reminded him that actions, no matter how quiet, had far-reaching consequences. Every interaction was an opportunity to create a positive impact, and he carried that thought with him as he moved through his morning at work. He approached tasks with more attentiveness, small gestures of consideration flowing naturally. He held the door open for colleagues, offered encouragement to those struggling with assignments, and made a point to listen when someone needed to be heard. These actions were minor, almost habitual, but each one was imbued with intention, a reflection of the understanding that even the smallest kindness could resonate deeply. The woman, after completing her errands, returned to her small apartment. She organized the space, checked bills, and prepared a simple lunch for herself and her child. Every action was deliberate, a conscious effort to create stability in their lives. She thought about the man who had helped them and how his kindness had set off a chain reaction she could not have foreseen. It had inspired her to reach out to old connections, to rebuild relationships, and to take small but meaningful steps toward a more secure future. Later, as the afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, the man left work and walked through the streets with no particular destination. His mind wandered back to that evening with the bikers, recalling the unexpected intensity of their gratitude and the woman's courage in bringing them together. He marveled at the interconnectedness of people, at how one small act could reach far beyond what was immediately visible, shaping lives and creating bonds that neither party could fully measure. Back at home, the woman and her child engaged in a quiet evening routine. She helped with homework, prepared a modest dinner, and shared stories from her day. The child laughed freely, a reminder that joy often thrived in the simplest moments. She thought about the power of generosity, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. It had taught her that compassion was a tangible force, one that could shape life trajectories and inspire resilience. The man, in his apartment, sat with a cup of tea, reflecting on the day. He thought about the countless people he had passed without noticing, the small choices he had made over the years, and the invisible threads connecting them all. He realized that acts of kindness were rarely isolated. They extended in ways unseen, touching lives in circles of influence that no one could entirely map. Each decision to act with care, no matter how small, could ripple outward in unexpected and profound ways. Night fell, and the city lights cast a gentle glow on the streets. The woman tucked her child into bed, listening to soft breathing that signaled comfort and security. She felt a profound sense of gratitude for the present, aware that life would always bring challenges, but also confidence that small gestures, whether given or received, could sustain and empower. In his own apartment, the man prepared for bed with similar thoughts. He recognized the quiet power of human connection, the way a single act could reverberate across time and circumstance. He felt a sense of peace, not from recognition or reward, but from the understanding that the world was filled with possibilities to make a difference. He had witnessed firsthand how a single moment of generosity could grow into something far larger than he had ever imagined. The following days continued with ordinary routines, yet both the woman and the man carried with them a subtle, lasting change. She approached life with renewed courage and resilience, inspired to face obstacles with confidence. He moved through the world with heightened awareness of the potential impact of his actions, mindful that even quiet deeds could carry enormous significance. Occasionally, they caught glimpses of each other's presence in subtle ways, The woman might see him briefly on the street, or he might notice a familiar smile among strangers. Each encounter, no matter how fleeting, served as a quiet reminder of the interconnectedness of human lives, the invisible network of care, and the enduring power of compassion. Weeks turned into months, and the initial intensity of the events faded into a steady, comforting rhythm. The woman's life stabilized gradually. She felt more secure, capable, and connected. The man continued his quiet acts of kindness, each one rippling outward in ways he would never fully know. And though their lives moved along separate paths, the memory of that singular moment in the grocery store remained, a testament to the power of generosity and the enduring impact of human compassion. In the quiet of their respective evenings, both reflected on the lessons learned that kindness matters, that courage can be inspired by simple gestures, and that even small choices can change lives in ways that are both profound and lasting. The world continued, often indifferent and chaotic, yet threaded with moments of connection, gratitude, and hope. And so, life went on, ordinary yet extraordinary, shaped by the invisible ripples of a single act of generosity. The woman and her child moved forward with courage and possibility, and the man continued to live his life quietly, yet fully aware that his small decision had created something larger than himself. It was a reminder that the world, despite its challenges, was still filled with the quiet, powerful force of human kindness.